In this lesson, we are going to create a backend web API using TypeScript in Node.js. To get the source code of this lesson, in the repository, find commit section, and in the commit section, find video 8, create node server. Here is the plan for this lesson. Let us start by creating backend folder. Go to the project. In the empty space, right-click, backend, and press enter. Then we need to go to the backend and run npm init there. From terminal menu, create a new terminal, go to backend, and run npm init. You can use -y to answer to all questions by default answers. And at the end, you will have package.json in the backend folder. By having package.json, we created our Node.js project in the backend. The first step is done. Let's go for the next step. It's configuring TypeScript. Based on the documentation on TypeScript website at this address, we need to create tsconfig. Let's create this file. Go to the backend folder, right-click new file, and set file name to tsconfig. Next step is installing TypeScript and tsNodeDev. We use TypeScript to build the project and tsNodeServe for developing project. They are development dependency. That's why I'm using savedev parameter. Copy, go back to the terminal. In the backend folder, run this command. Awesome. Next step is in the tsconfig.json. We need to set the setting for compiler inside tsconfig. Let's review the setting. The target is ECMAScript 2015. The output directory for creating build version of project is build. We use a strict mode to true to show all errors in the TypeScript code. Set module to common.js. And set ES module interp to true. For information about this parameter, check this link. Save the code to format it. The step 2 is done. Let's go for third step. It's configuring ESLint. We are going to use ESLint to show all errors in the code. We need to install some packages. Go back to terminal again. In the backend folder, install ESLint, TypeScript ESLint parser, and TypeScript ESLint plugin. Then create ESLint configuration file. Go to the backend folder, right-click, new file, set file name to .eslint rc.js. Also, for get rid of all files in the node module, right-click, new file, .git, ignore, and inside that, put this path /node module and /build. Also for system files for Mac and Windows, you can add this to be excluded from the Git repository. Save the code. As you see in the source control, we have only some files that we are working on it. Let's go back to the plan. After creating ESLint, we need to put configuration inside there. Here is the configuration for ESLint. Set module.export equal to this object. The first setting is for environment, and the environment we are working on it is ES 2016 to true and no to true. For extend, we use two configuration, ESLint recommended and TypeScript ESLint recommended. For the parser, we use the ESLint parser for TypeScript, and the parser options is like this. Source type is module, and ECMAScript version that we are working on it is ES 2016. For the plugin, set it to TypeScript ESLint. Save the code, go back to plan, and there we are. We need to create the Express server. Express is a package to create web server on Node.js. Let's go for it. Start by installing Express. We install this package in the dependency section, not in the dev dependency. If we check the package.json, all dependencies that we installed so far, they are in the dev dependency section. But this one, Express, will be shipped to the production version of backend, so we have to install it as dependency, not in the development dependency. That's it. The dependency section has Express package. Step 4 is done, and we are ready for the step 5. Create index.ts inside src folder in backend. First of all, we need to create a new folder in backend, set the name to src, and inside that, right-click new file, set the file name to index.ts. Inside index.ts, we need to import Express and request and response. Let us start by importing Express, request and response. As you see, we are getting this error. It says we need to install the types of Express by running this command. Based on the plan, in the step 4, we need to install types of Express to get rid of that error. So open your terminal, in the backend folder, install types/express as dev dependency. If we check it again, this time there is no error here. Let's go for the next step. It's importing sample products from data, but the data is in the frontend folder. So we need to copy data in the src folder, this one, find it in the frontend folder, copy, go back to backend, and paste it inside the src folder. Do the same for types folder in the src in frontend. Copy, go back to src folder in backend, right click and paste. Good. Go back to the plan and import sample products from data. Put it inside the index.ts. The next step is creating Express server by calling Express function and set it to app. Next is creating a route using app.get. The address of route is /API/products, and second parameter for get is a function that accepts request and response from Express, and inside that we return sample products using res.json. Next one is defining the port number to serving the backend. I set the port number to 4000. And the last command is calling app.listen and passing port as a first parameter and the callback function as second parameter. Save the code. I just forgot something in the step 2. I need to add dev and build command to run the project. Here is the dev command. Go to the package.json in the backend, in the script section, add this command. So when we run npm run dev, ts node dev will run with these parameters, and it serves index.ts in src folder. What this function does is to compile index.ts and all files inside the source folder and convert it to the JavaScript and run it on the server. If there is a change in the index.ts or other files, automatically this command will run again and recompile everything. Let's add second command, it's build. And for build, just type tsc for TypeScript. Let's test these commands. Let's start by build. Open your terminal, npm run build, and press enter. Good, it's done. Let's go and check the result. Here we have a new folder named build in the backend, and inside that, all TS files converted to the JS files. If I open index.js, as you see, it's the compiled version of this file. Awesome. The build command works. Let's go for the dev command. We need to run this command while we are developing this project. It launched the server at this address. If I open it in the browser, I'm getting cannot get /error. But if I go to the API route that I have defined, it's /API/products, I'm getting list of products. I can use this API in the front-end application for accessing to the products. Great! We successfully implemented a backend web server to serve sample products for front-end using TypeScript. Until next lesson, bye-bye. In this lesson, we are going to fetch products from the backend API that we implemented in the previous lesson. Source code of this lesson is here. And in the comment section, you can find video 9 fetch product to check all changes in the code. Here is the plan. Let us start by installing Axios. Axios is a package to send AJAX requests using npm install Axios. Open a new terminal, go to frontend folder, and install it. Next step is in the main.tsx. Inside frontend, find main.tsx in the src folder, and right after import section, we need to config base URL for Axios. What we do here is to check the node environment. If we are in development mode, set the base URL to the backend that we created locally. Otherwise, set the backend to the root of project, because in the production mode, we have frontend and backend in the same address. I just copy this and put it right here. We need to import Axios, Ctrl I, and press enter. For process error, we need to install types node. npm install save dev types @types /node. The error is gone. Let's go for the next step. The second step is defining types in the homepage. We use reducer hook to fetch data from backend. So we need to define the initial state for reducer hook. Initial state has a type. Here is the type of initial state. Inside the homepage, right before export default, define the state type. It's an object that contains products, loading of type boolean, and error of type string. Products is an array of product imported from types. Let's define the next type. It's action. Here is action type. We have 3 variations for action type. The first one is an object that has type, and the value of that type is fetch request. Another one is an object of type fetch success, and it has payload of type an array of products. And the last one is a type of fetch fail, and the payload is of type string. It's the error message. Let's go for defining the initial state and the reducer. Initial state is of type state, and the default value for products is empty array. For loading is true, because at the beginning of loading homepage, we need to fetch products from backend, and the error is empty. At the first place, there is no error. Go back to the plan and define the reducer function. After initial state, define reducer function. It accepts 2 parameters, a state and action of type state that we have defined here, and action of type the action that we have defined right here. Inside that, define switch case and check the type of action. If it's fetch request, set loading to true and keep previous state as they are. If it's fetch success, keep the previous state, set loading to false, and set products array to the action.payloads. This data comes from the backend. For the error case, set loading to false and fill the error from the error that we get from backend. For default, return state as it is. Next step is defining getError function. We need to define a function for getting the error from the API response. Inside types folder, create API error.ts. Let's go to the types folder new file, set file name to API error.ts, and inside that define type API error. It's an object that contains a message of type string. Also, it has a response object that has data, and the data has message of type string. The next step is creating getError function in utils.ts. Inside src, right-click, new file, utils.ts, and inside that define this utility function. In this function, what we do is to check the error. If the error has this object, hierarchy, response, data, message, return it. Otherwise, return the general error message. We need to import API error from types folder. Good. Step 5. Fetch products. For fetch products, we need to use useReducer. Here is the TypeScript version of useReducer. Go to homepage and inside the component, define useReducer. Import useReducer from React here, and it returns an array that contains two objects. The first one is the state, and second one is dispatch function to change the state. Also, for the useReducer, we use this generic to define the type of state and action, and as parameter we pass the reducer that we have defined earlier and the initial state that we have defined here. Next step is defining useEffect. Import useEffect from React like this. useEffect accepts two parameters. The first parameter is a function and second parameter is an array. If array is empty, this function runs only one time after loading the component. Inside useEffect, we define fetchData function. Inside fetchData, first of all, we dispatch this action. What it does is to set loading to true. Inside try-catch, we send an AJAX request to the backend API. So we need to import Axios from Axios like this. Then get the result and dispatch fetch success. What do we pass as payload to fetch success action? It's the data from backend. It's list of products in the backend. If there is an error, dispatch fetch fail action and pass the error message as payload to this action. We need to import getError from utils folder and API error from types folder. We convert the error in the catch as API error because getError accepts API error data type. Great. Inside the homepage, we imported getError from utils and API error from API error in types folder. After defining the fetchData function in the useEffect, we need to call it. And what happens at the loading of this component, this function will run and we get products from backend. Let's go for the last step. Replace sample products with products. Right before the row, check loading. If loading is true, show loading box component. If there is an error, show message box component. Otherwise, render the row as it is. Don't forget to put the closing parentheses and save the code to format it. What is loading box? It's a component to show loading in the page. For loading box, we need to create a component. In the Explorer, find Components folder, right-click New File, and set file name to loadingbox.tsx. Import Spinner from React Bootstrap, type RFC, and press Tab to create loading box component. And in the return section, instead of div, put this. Spinner, set animation to border and rule the status. Inside that, define and span, set class name to visually hidden, and the text is loading. Save the code, go back to home page and import it using Command I on Mac or Control I on Windows to import loading box. For message box, do the same. Inside the components, right-click new file, messagebox.tsx. We use alert component from React Bootstrap. Type RFC, press tab to create message box component. Message box has props. Here is the props object, variant and children. Variant default value is info and children is a React node. Let's define the type of them, put colon after closing curly bracket, and set the type of props. Variant is optional of type string and children is of type a React node. In the return section, instead of div, return alert, set variant based on the props, and in the content section, return children. Save the code, go to homepage.tsx and import it from components folder. Here is the components that we have imported. Great. Based on the plan, we are ready to test the result. Make sure that in the front-end folder, you have run project and open it in the browser. We are getting this error. It says 404. Open developer tools. In the network section, refresh and check the address. It says /API/products. The issue is in the localhost colon. The issue is here. It should be 400. It should be 4000. I just forgot to save the base URL setting for Axios in the main.tsx. Make sure that it is saved here and then go back and refresh. This time the base URL is correct, but we are getting another error and it's course error. Let's fix it. Go back to the index.ts in backend, open a new terminal, go to backend folder and install course here. After that, import course. We get this error, so we need to install the types of course. Copy this command, open terminal, and install types of course to get rid of course error here. Good. We need to call app.use on course. Right after creating app, call app.use and pass course middleware to this function and call course with these parameters: credentials to true and origin to this address. By having this setting, all requests from this address will be accepted by server. Let's check the result. Refresh. This time we are getting products from backend. If you get any error, check your terminals and make sure that you are running the front end at this address and backend like this. Get rid of other terminals. You only need npm run dev in front end and npm run dev in backend. Great. we successfully, let's check the products. Let's check the network section. As you see, we have 2 API calls. In React 18, useEffect calls twice in a strict mode. And it happens in development mode only, not in the production mode. So don't worry about calling twice. Great, that's it about this lesson. Until next lesson, bye-bye.